How you doing, YouTube? Matt with Massive Beer Reviews. Back to yet another review. And, yeah, a little bit of cork popping time. Even though I don't think there's corks in these. There might be. Anyway, some 1972 Miami Dolphins cork popping time. Let's put it that way. In the form of Funky Buddha Brewing's Undefeated Saison. And the Undefeated Saison aged in Chardonnay barrels. It's not the first time I've actually done this. I've never done this before. I believe it's the first time I actually did the barrel-aged version, or at least bottled it. But 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to get a bottle from the brewery, and I popped it. I was lucky enough to actually get it before they even were the last team lost in the NFL. What are we talking about? Well, for those that watch the foosball, 1972 Miami Dolphins are the only undefeated team in the history of American football. From start to finish, from beginning to end, Super Bowl, they went undefeated, which makes them the greatest team in the history of football. I happen to be a Dolphins fan. I know, kind of weird. But yeah, I was lucky enough to actually get one of these before they went undefeated and reviewed it and kind of popped it up the day the last team lost. I think that year it was the Carolina Panthers, I believe. Anyway, yeah, and I skipped last year. It might have been 2 years, actually. I don't remember. But anyway, this year I was like, I got to try it. And they came out with this variant, so I was lucky enough to get a bowl. So thank you very much, Funky Buddha. And honestly, it's kind of cool to go back and revisit it, but it's always fun to do a little side-by-side. Got two big 750s here, so it's not something I typically want to crack together, but, I mean, they kind of have to be drank together, so you can kind of tell the difference between what's going on. So, yeah, so anyway, the last undefeated team lost, not this past weekend, a weekend before. That would be the the Kansas City Chiefs. So they released this past weekend. Today is the 25th, I believe. I got this in the mail yesterday, and yeah, longer story longer. Let's crack in and see what she's got. As far as what they say in the bottle, it says Funky Buddha, Oakland Park, Florida, Undefeated Saison. It's a French style, countryside style ale brewed with grape must and champagne yeast. 7.2% alcohol by volume. And that'd be that. Label-wise on this one, it's cool. I always liked the label on this, just from stylization. I mean, you come on here and you actually see, if anything, you see any sports stuff, you see Arsenal stuff. I'm a big Arsenal fan. I'm equally a Miami Dolphins fan, but I hate their colors, so I don't actually buy much of their stuff. So, anyway, but I like the way it works on the label. The label's cool texture, nice design, kind of classic. Yada, yada, yada. On a new one, we have here the Living Barrel series. It's kind of like their new kind of breakaway labeling that they're doing a lot of their barrel-aged stuff. It's a Chardonnay barrel-aged Undefeated Saison. It's an ale aged in barrels with grape must and champagne yeast added. 7.7% alcohol by volume, so half of the percentage bump. And label-wise, it's cool. You got your nice fancy wax there, beautiful kind of Miami Dolphins orange. When they send a press release on this, they have to separate themselves from football team, and it would be kind of promoting NFL, but I can say it because I'm just some random dude drinking beer on YouTube's. And yeah, that'd be that. But yeah, label on that, very cool. I think what I said last time, it was a kind of a mixture of kind of a menage of like the the brewery and like kind of wicked weedy kind of vibes to it. So yeah, I dig it. So yeah, let's crack into these, see what she's got. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky one. If just for the reason that, tear that off there, it might screw me up on a pour. These are living beers. They're Saison, especially it's one in a barrel. So they could actually, kind of shoot out of here. So I'm going to try to do my not so patented double pour. But I kind of have to open these and then pour them. So there's a good chance beer could get everywhere in here. So for you people who like to see people fail, or more specifically me fail, then you're in luck. Do that. And let's see. Pop this off here. It's pretty good, but it doesn't look like it's going to be shooting out of there anytime soon. Okay, we're off to an okay start so far. Big carbonation on both of them. Give them a pour. See if we can actually... Yeah, it's going to be a big head, at least on the non-barrel aged version. Which I mean, you can kind of expect, based off of, anytime you're going to put something in a barrel, you're going to kind of lose some carbonation. So yeah, as you can see, two markedly different pours. One, we have just a kind of big, fluffy, kind of pillowy head on it that's kind of resting on top of this kind of rocky, huge, gigantic, walled kind of head to it. You figure to be crumble a little bit faster based on how deep those kind of bubbles are in there, but she's taking her time. Over and soft oranges, kind of champagne-like carbonation, kind of makes sense to yeast going on there. Over here, not as rocky of an edge on the head. Definitely creamy and a very different color to it. Deep, rich, plummy kind of color, kind of caramel plummy kind of vibes throughout the whole thing. So, yeah, two starkly different colored beers. So there you go. So we can get a nose on her. Start with the base first. Bright. Not when they talk about a champagne kind of yeast in a saison with grape must, you're really trying to lean on the vinous side of things here. You're not going for that super peppery, super kind of coriander or even like banana estery kind of yeast here. You're going usually for a little bit more kind of vinous with that kind of grape must in there. Adding to that, you get that kind of dry, very bright white wine kind of dryness to it. And that's kind of what you're getting in here. You're getting that grape must, which is a deep, kind of rich, kind of fruitiness. But then you get this kind of dry, slightly tart kind of champagne yeast on top of that. A little bit of like a hay, kind of strawy, kind of weedy, kind of nose to it malt-wise. But definitely, in a I don't want to say savory, but in a meaty kind of grape, a little bit of that kind of champagne-y, yeasty, dry tartiness over there. So, let's see what this one has to offer. I mean, we're definitely getting more into wine country here. You're definitely getting more tart. You're getting more kind of chewy, more kind of... I'm not the biggest wine person in the world, so I couldn't sit there and kind of pick apart Chardonnay from, Merlots and white wines. I can tell the base differences, but I'm not the biggest wine guy in the world. But you're getting a bit more of tartness, a bit more kind of acidity to it, a little bit more of kind of, like I said, that kind of chewy kind of density. It's not necessarily white wine. It's not like a deep, rich red wine. It's falling somewhere in between. There's a little bit of kind of like a alcohol vapor to it, a little kind of alcohol evaporation to it, slightly kind of nail polishy, acetone kind of vibe going on there, but it's very, very, very minimal. But yeah, it has this little bit of almost like where in here you have I was going to say over here you have more savory, and I mean that, but in a different sense than this, is that this is a bit more kind of aged. I mean, it's aged in a barrel, but it has that kind of almost caramelly stuff that you get in a lot of English old ales when they kind of age. So you're getting that kind of tart vinousness over here, but at the same time you're getting a bit of like more rich kind of caramelly vibes. I mean, looking at the actual color difference kind of makes sense. But yeah, brighter, lighter, more dry, and a bit more of that kind of bright grapiness. Even though grape must is inherently kind of dense thing, it's a little bit brighter than what we have over here. Over here, a little bit more, I guess you would say, savory, a little bit more kind of caramelly vibes. On top of that, a bit more tartness even, with that more kind of deep, rich, not super dark, but not super light kind of wine notes. Over here, that vinousness coming from the grape must and the actual little bit of champagne yeast. Over here, you're getting a lot of it more from the actual barrel and that kind of character over there. Maybe even a little bit of kind of soft vanilla oakiness. A lot of words going on. Let's just dive in, see what they got. Cheers. Base first. That's super tasty. Yeah. I almost want to say this tastes like it's actually oak aged. I feel like I'm getting like a nice, rich, deep kind of oak out of it. But it's just that grape must and that champagne yeast. It's not coming off nearly as dry as I thought it would, based off of the nose. There's dryness there. Maybe that's the whole thing that's kind of making me think oakiness, but there is a bit of dryness there. It's sweeter than I thought it would be. There's a tartness kind of underlying the whole thing, and there is a little bit of that kind of caramelly kind of sweetness underneath it too. So it's a little bit more robust, a little bit more, again, I keep leaning on the word savory, it just keeps popping in my head, even from the look and from the smell. But it kind of leans on the savory end of things. It tastes like almost like somewhere between a Saison and a little bit of kind of an English old ale. It's kind of unique. It tastes different than what I remember the original being. But really delicious, really beautiful mouthfeel. A bit of sprightliness to it. A little bit of dryness, like I said, reminds me of oak. So it doesn't come off too champagne-y, if that means anything to somebody. I'm not a big champagne kind of person. And just really tasty. I'm always been a fan of great must in beers. It just kind of brings this earthy kind of savoriness to a beer for me, and it does that over here in spades. Let's dive into the Chardonnay barrel. Cheers. Wow. I expected this to come off way heavier, way denser. It's a different beer for sure, but it's not nearly as dense as I thought it'd be. It's probably on the same level as far as density over here. What you're getting over here is actually even more for me, like caramel notes. I'm getting way more kind of an old ale kind of vibe over here. It's got this rich kind of caramel note to it. It's kind of verging on that kind of date figgy thing a little bit in the background. Is that the Chardonnay grapes in there kind of doing their thing? I don't know. I'm getting the same thing over here. I don't think it's all the kind of Chardonnay barrel. I figured that would bring a little bit more kind of earthy tartness to it as opposed to rich kind of caramel notes. But since I'm getting that kind of caramel thing over here too, I think it might be just a little bit of an age thing going on. Or it could be a batch variance. I'm sure they brewed this, or this one, much earlier and kind of ages for a bit compared to this one. So it could be batch variance. Yeah, really kind of blurring the lines between what a Saison is and isn't. Does that really matter? I don't really think so. But all in all, they're super fucking delicious beers. I think this one is fantastic. I think this one is a little bit better, but not by much. They're both absolutely fantastic beers. It'd be hard to tell, you know what I mean? Not tell the difference between the two, but hard to kind of pick over which one. I mean, this one has that little bit more of kind of an old ale thing, which hits me, right in the heartstrings. That's one of my favorite beers in the world, and not something you typically expect to get from a Saison. But this is, while not traditional Saison, is a little bit closer to traditional, so it depends on what your mood would be like or what you're looking for in a beer. But overall, two really fun fucking beers. From a fun brewery. I mean, that's what Funky Buddha does. They do fun things. They, make a lot of kooky beers. They make a lot of base beers. They make a lot of traditional beers and go all kind of weird with stuff. Sure, the whole buyout thing they just went through. A lot of people kind of pooping them for that. But, in the end, good beer is to be had by a lot of different places. And to dismiss these beers based off of that, to me, is a little bit weird. I get righteousness and I get the whole kind of, you got to, independent, whatever. But there's people that actually do the wrong thing on the inside of the craft beer world too. So, I don't know. That's a whole argument for another time. We're here to actually talk about the beers. So, yeah. Nice. Dry. More oaky than anything over here. Again, I think that's coming from champagne yeast combined with that grape must. A little bit of savoriness in there, a little bit of caramels, and a little bit of tartness. Over here, this kind of kicked it up a notch. A decent amount more kind of caramel vibes floating around in there. Not nearly as much tartness as you think of. And if that oak is coming off anywhere in here, I think it's coming off in a little bit of vanilla notes. I think that's kind of adding to that kind of caramel sugar daddy thing, subtle sugar daddy thing. I'm getting a little bit extra vanilla from maybe some of that kind of, I assume a Chardonnay barrel. I assume it's like a fresh oak kind of thing. over here to bring you kind of a little bit more desserty version of this, but markedly different beers, from not just from look but taste, but different than what Saisons traditionally are, but good beers nonetheless. So let's talk about it. Are these some of the better Saisons that I've had as of late? I wouldn't even classify them as that. Are they two of the more tastier beers in general? Yeah. There's a lot of beer floating on the fringes of the world. Whether it be super pastry stouts, or super high ABV barrel-aged stouts, or haze this to the nth degree, or let's rip your fucking teeth enamel off, sours over there. These beers kind of exist in that realm that's they're robust, super robust, but at the same time they're not like challenge beers or action beers, whatever you want to call them. I make an actual, unfortunately it's not a Miami Dolphins kind of analogy, but I always make the analogy. Some of my favorite beers are like Walter Payton of beers. They can be powerful yet graceful, or quick yet powerful, and all kind of summed up into one. And that's kind of where I guess these beers kind of land for me. They're kind of, you know what I mean? They're vibrant, but at the same time gentle. They're the jumbo shrimp of the beer world. They're very kind of oxymoronish, but at the same time kind of really makes sense when you drink them. So there's some of the more comfortable beers, some of the more tasty beers, some of the more rounded beers actually I've had. The edges on these are very soft. There's really not much there, kind of sharp and jarring. You'd expect that from a barrel version, but from a more fresher version, even is the Saison 7.2%, so it's nice to see something as comfy as that to drink. Value availability. Brewery only. I believe this is 12 to 14. This is probably close to 20. They send me a sheet. I don't read anything. That's my shtick. I don't like to know anything about the beer. I just like to go on as plain as whatever. So pretty sure I'm right on with those numbers, give or take a couple bucks. And just say, if you like what, will you like these? If you like well-made beers, if you like well-made barrel-aged beers, even if this one's not barreled, it kind of comes off a little bit of that with the champagne yeast and a must. If you like, Saisons, if you love Saison, if you love Belgian table beers, if you like those kind of beers, but you also like old school English old ales, because that's the vibes I'm getting from this. It's actually a cool little kind of closer to that than not kind of thing going on here. So if you wish there was somewhere in between that those two worlds met, these are the perfect thing to drink, to be perfectly honest with you, because that's exactly where these land for me, especially more this one. It kind of makes sense if you're looking at the color and the aging and stuff like that, but yeah, somewhere in between there, and that's a pretty fun thing. At least I think so. So there you go. Probably a super long review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, anywhere in between, down there, words and stuff and things. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, Massive Beers, all four of those places if you want to check this guy on it. Anywhere else, then I'll read down. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a nice undefeated season right now. Oh no, you're not, because the Dolphins are the one who've done that. Well, Arsenal too. So hopefully you guys are enjoying whatever right now, and hope to see you next time. Cheers.